Imagine standing in a county courthouse parking lot at dawn, watching complete strangers wave paddles while an auctioneer chants your entire life away for 15 grand. $15,000. Going once, going twice, for the house you busted your back to fix after your divorce. How the hell did it come to this? Because Karen Voss, our HOA president, decided the exact same vinyl windows she'd personally rubber-stamped 6 months earlier were suddenly aesthetic violations that threatened property values. She thought she could crush a divorced electrician like a bug under her designer heel. Big mistake. Karen had no idea I'd document everything. Every email, every threat, every whispered lie at those soul-sucking community meetings. Fast forward 3 years, and I'm staring at a $75,000 check with her trembling signature on it. Yeah, that Karen Voss. The woman who ran Oak Ridge Meadows like her personal police state just learned what happens when you mess with the guy who knows how to trace every short circuit back to its rotten source. My name's Tyler Brooks, 47, union electrician, and I used to think I understood power. Turns out the scariest kind doesn't come from a breaker box. It comes from a pastel clipboard and a smile that could freeze vodka. After the divorce, I needed somewhere stable for Sophie's weekends. She was 14, already juggling therapy and weekend custody ping pong. Oak Ridge Meadows looked like the American dream on steroids. White picket fences, kids on bikes, the smell of backyard grills floating through the air like suburban incense. The 1970s single-pane windows in my 3-bedroom ranch were leaking money every winter, literally whistling cold air like they were paid to do it. I spent months researching replacements, double-pane vinyl, Energy Star rated, matching the neighborhood's historic charm, guidelines to the letter. I did everything right. Submitted the architectural review packet with photos, specs, contractor licenses, even a letter from the city inspector. The HOA had 30 days. On day 29, I got the golden ticket. Request approved. Installation permitted. Signed by Karen Voss herself, architectural committee chair. Those windows went in clean. Permits pulled. Inspections passed. Heating bill sliced in half. For exactly 17 glorious days, I felt like I'd beaten the system. Then Karen Voss decided to rewrite reality. My phone rang while I was flipping pancakes for Sophie. Mr. Brooks, your unauthorized modifications are in direct violation of Oak Ridge covenants. Her voice was pure honey over broken glass. Karen, I have your signed approval right here. Approval was preliminary, pending final board ratification. You should have known that. Click. No explanation, no appeal, just the sound of her hanging up like she'd just sentenced me to the electric chair. Tuesday night, I walked into the community center carrying my approval letter like a shield. The place reeked of burnt Folgers and quiet desperation. Karen sat behind a folding table in a pastel blazer, blonde bob helmet glued in place, leather portfolio open like the Book of Revelation. She slid a violation notice across the table with the tenderness of a mafia hitman. $500. 30 days to comply or replace. I held up her own signature. You approve these. Approval does not equal compliance, Mr. Brooks. Community standards evolve. Her smile never reached her eyes. Around the room, neighbors suddenly found the floor fascinating. Not one person met my gaze. That's when it clicked. Karen wasn't enforcing rules. She was collecting scalps. By month 2, the fine doubled to $1,000. Month 3, $2 grand. My post-divorce budget was already on life support. Lawyers wanted $5,000 just to read the file. Pay Karen's ransom or lose the house. Classic HOA fork in the road. But electricians don't panic when the lights go out. We grab the multimeter and start tracing. While researching Ohio HOA statutes at 2 a.m., I drove the neighborhood at dawn counting identical windows. 49 houses. Same brand, same install date, same shiny vinyl glow. 0 violation notices on any of them. Karen wasn't protecting aesthetics. She was running a protection racket with pastel letterhead. The first retaliation hit like a breaker tripping. 2 weeks after I embarrassed her at the meeting, a certified letter slithered into my mailbox. Property lien notice. $2 for 100. Late fees, admin costs, enforcement expenses. Paragraph 3 threatened foreclosure proceedings. Over windows she approved. I called my neighbor Mrs. Delgado, 71, prize-winning Rose Gardner. Her voice shook. Tyler, Karen stopped by yesterday, asking if you seemed financially unstable. If Sophie visits regularly. If your truck looks commercial. She paused. She did the same thing to me last year over my garden gnomes. I moved them rather than fight. I'm too old, Mijo. That night, I stayed up until the birds sang, digging through county recorder files. Ohio law is crystal clear. Liens require 30-day cure notice with certified mail and specific language. Karen had skipped every step. Her paperwork was Swiss cheese. Next morning, I photocopied everything, filed my formal challenge, and walked out of the basement office feeling voltage surge through my veins. But Karen wasn't done. She called an emergency board meeting to clarify window policy. When I stood up in my work boots and held up the invalid lien, her face went from Botox tight to nuclear red. This meeting is adjourned, she snapped, but the board members were already whispering. I just cracked her perfect little kingdom. The real war started the next week. Debt collectors began calling at dinner time. Some outfit called Midwest Recovery Solutions that sounded like they'd repo your soul if you were late on a parking ticket. Mr. Brooks, you owe $2,400. We can garnish wages. The lien is invalid. I filed a challenge. Our client says otherwise. Sleep became a myth. Sophie noticed during her weekend visit. Dad, you look like you fought a circuit breaker and lost. I hugged her instead of answering. That's when I turned the spare bedroom into command central. One wall became a crime scene timeline. Every notice, every email, photos of every window in Oak Ridge. Colored string connected the dots like a conspiracy board on steroids. Mapping Karen's enforcement pattern was the gut punch. 49 identical windows. But violations only rained on renters, minorities, and blue-collar folks like me. Country club members got polite reminder postcards. Mrs. Patterson, married to the bank VP, installed the exact same windows the same month. HOA minutes actually praised her community-minded upgrade. 3 streets over, Mr. Alvarez the mechanic got hammered for the same install. His crime? Driving a work truck and having an accent. Same windows, different zip codes in the same neighborhood. Then Mrs. Delgado showed up at my door after dark with a manila folder and trembling hands. I kept everything from the Gnome War. Emails between Karen and the board. I thought maybe someone braver than me. Inside was pure dynamite. One email stopped my heart. Strategic enforcement, target renters, and working class first. They lack resources to fight back. Signed Karen Voss. Mrs. Delgado whispered. I'm a 71-year-old Mexican widow, Tyler. Who would believe me? That folder turned selective bullying into federal fair housing violations. I called Illinois legal aid the next morning. The intake lawyer's voice perked up like she'd won the lottery. Sir, if you can prove a pattern, this is a federal case. 3 boxes of evidence later, civil rights attorney Rachel Torres sat across from me spreading photos like winning poker hands. Textbook discrimination, Tyler. Economic profiling, racial targeting, selective enforcement. Karen just violated 6 federal statutes. She tapped my timeline. Most people see isolated fines. You mapped the entire criminal enterprise. Electricians really do know how to trace problems to the source. Karen doubled down anyway. Her fancy Chicago attorney sent a cream-colored demand letter threatening immediate foreclosure and sheriff's sale. That weekend, I walked every street with my camera and measuring tape, documenting every window, every violation notice, every ignored mansion. The pattern screamed. Karen's own rental properties, owned through a cute little LLC called KV Holdings, had the exact same illegal windows. She'd find others and is selling cheap, then swooped in with cash offers through her shell company. When I laid the property records on Rachel's desk, she actually whistled. This just went from civil rights to RICO territory. Karen's been running a real estate racket using HOA power as the weapon. Federal investigators got interested fast. But Karen smelled blood and escalated. Anonymous code complaints flooded the city about my truck. Child Protective Services showed up after a concerned neighbor claimed Sophie looked neglected. A brick flew through my front window with a note. Drop it or lose more than glass. Sophie cried in my arms that night, and something inside me turned cold steel. The breaking point came when federal agents raided Karen's McMansion at 6 a.m. Turns out my evidence room had become the FBI's favorite bedtime story. Racketeering, mail fraud, wire fraud, housing discrimination, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation. 40 years if convicted on everything. Karen's perfect bob was a mess on the evening news, pearls replaced by handcuffs. The emergency HOA meeting that night felt like the Super Bowl of karma. The community center was standing room only. Channel 7 cameras rolled as the remaining board members read Karen's resignation letter with shaking voices. Rachel Torres stood at the podium and slid a settlement check across the table under the fluorescent lights. $75,000, signed by Karen Voss herself before the feds froze her accounts. The room erupted. Mrs. Delgado hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Sophie clapped until her hands were red. But the real victory wasn't the money. KV Holdings was dissolved. Every property Karen stole through harassment went back on the market at fair value. The Patels, driven out 2 years earlier, bought their house back with restitution money. Mr. Patel called me sobbing. We never thought justice would come. Illinois passed House Bill 319, the HOA Transparency Act, because of our case. Conflict disclosures mandatory, foreclosure limits, tenant protections. I testified beside the governor while he signed it. 6 months later, I'm watching Sophie practice her college essay in the backyard. Same windows sparkling in the sun, now legal by statewide precedent. The settlement funded a neighborhood legal defense fund and a playground rebuild. Carlos Alvarez is the new HOA president, first order of business, monthly financial reports and zero tolerance for personal vendettas. Mrs. Delgado's gnomes are back in full glory, waving at every passerby like middle fingers to Karen's memory. Karen plea bargained down to 3 years federal plus probation. Real estate license revoked forever. Last I heard she's selling insurance in some strip mall office, clipboard confiscated. So here's the question that keeps me up at night. Was Karen Voss the real villain, or was the system that handed her unchecked power the actual monster? Tell me in the comments, who do you think was truly guilty? Drop your own HOA horror stories below. If this tale of one electrician taking down an entire crooked empire made you furious and then strangely satisfied, smash that like button and subscribe for more Karen takedowns. Because sometimes the little guy doesn't just win, he rewires the whole damn neighborhood. See you in the next one.